Hello guys, my name is Charleston Didasco from San Diego, California, and today we are here with an author, Stephen King, and today we're going to be talking about theme-based analysis and kind of talk about our stories as a group and as a fan base that we have came up with all together. So give it up for Stephen King, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey folks, my name is Stephen King, and this is one of my many fans who read my novel Pet Sematary, and I'm just here to ask him what his thoughts on the book were.
Well, thank you very much for having me here today. As a #1 fan, I would have to say Pet Sematary was probably one of my favorite novels because it's different from the other books that I've read of yours. After reading It, The Shining, and all those other good stories, this one was different. And well, first off, it's about a family that moves out into the country for a more quieter area, and they decide that they want peace and quiet, and moving out in the country would be the best solution. So after moving out into the country, Lewis guides his family around the house and shows them the money that he saved for them, and how it turned out to be a pretty well built house. And after living there for about maybe a week or two, their neighbor, Rudd, talks to him about the cemetery in the
Charles,
backwoods.
I'm going to have to cut you off right there and ask you what you thought about the themes of the book.
Well, throughout my story, Pet Sematary, I would have to say the theme is going to be based on loss and grief, because in this story, you're going to have to get used to characters dying, and that you would have thought that they would have been living to the end, and you're going to have to put your feet into other people's shoes of how the situation would go in reality, because in this story, Stephen King would try to explain to you that this is reality, and it's something that's going to happen sooner or later, and you're going to be really desperate to find a solution of how to get that person back. And in doing that into this story ties into horror, suspense, and grabbing your attention for the next situation to happen. So I would have to say loss is a major theme in this book, Pet Sematary.
That's an interesting viewpoint, because I didn't even think of most of that stuff when I wrote it.
It's crazy. I don't know. It kept me going.
I was just kind of going around the fact that it was a pet cemetery, and
Yeah.
there are dead things in a cemetery.
Yeah.
You lose them. That was where I was going.
And then when it ties into humans, getting the chance to come back, but maybe not as their, the soul that they had before, but the soul after. It was weird. So.
Yeah, Pet Sematary.
What is this place? I brought you here to bury Alan's cat.
Daddy, is church all right?
Why, Judge? I have my reasons.
I dreamed he got hit by a car and you and Mr. Crandall buried him in the pet cemetery.
What did we do tonight, Judge? What we did, Lois, was a secret.
May the Lord bless you and keep you.
Has anyone ever buried a person up there?
May the Lord make his face to shine upon you.
You're thinking thoughts best not thought of.
Daddy's gonna do something really bad.
You're thinking of putting him up there. Don't deny the thought hadn't crossed your mind.
Come back to me, Gage. Come back to us.
Paramount Pictures presents Stephen King's all-time best-selling tale of horror, Pet Sematary.
And we're back with one of my many fans, Olivia Bickle, talking about her viewpoints on my book, Misery.
Well, Paul Sheldon got in a car accident in the beginning, and Annie Wilkes is his #1 fan, and she finds him and takes him back to her house, and she's a former nurse, so she basically gives him a bunch of drugs and knocks him out, and he wakes up to be in this place, which is her house. And he woke up all confused, and Annie explained to him what was going on and how she was his #1 fan. And she read his series Misery, and she basically fell into this fantasy world that misery was real, and she basically was really super upset when she found out that he was killing her in the last book. So she forced him to stay there and write another story about misery, and to bring her back to life, basically, and then he tries to escape, and everything just goes downhill from there.
And as soon as the road's open, I'll take you to a hospital. In the meantime, you've got a lot of recovering to do.
There is nothing to worry about. You're gonna be just fine. I'm your #1 fan.
My name is Annie Wilkes.
I think one of my clients, Paul Sheldon, might be in some kind of trouble.
You mean Paul Sheldon, the writer? Well, everybody sure likes those misery books.
They had it at the store, Paul.
They said he checked out last Tuesday. Isn't that a little strange?
I guess it was kind of a miracle you finding me.
In a way, I was following you.
You were following me?
Oh, Paul, I've read everything of yours, but the misery novels. You must be a good man, or you could never have created such a wondrous, loving creature as Misery Chastain.
Very kind.
The presumption must now be that Paul Sheldon is dead.
You dirty bird. How could you? Misery Chastain cannot be dead.
Misery Spirit is still alive.
I don't want her, Smith! I want her! And you murdered her!
You don't think he's dead, do you?
And don't even think about anybody coming for you, because I never called them. Nobody knows you're here. And you better hope nothing happens to me. Because if I die, you die.
I know you've been out. Is this what you're looking for?
So, Steven, in your opinion, which one of your books is your favorite?
Out of all my books, my favorite would probably have to be The Shining, because it was my third book, one of my first, and it was when I would really start to get into more complex plots and characters, and yeah.
So what are some of the major themes in this book?
Well, I had a lot of themes in this book, but I think some of the main ones were family, because the Torrance family, once they get up at the overlook in the mountains and the snow starts coming in, you know, it's just them three. It's no other society, and they just kind of have to learn to be a family. And another one of the major themes was violence. I got kind of bloody on this one. There's all kinds of murders and beatings and everything else. Another was a supernatural, which in a lot of my books I get into the supernatural. And like in Carrie, she had supernatural powers, which I kind of like that sort of thing. And probably one of the biggest ones is isolation, because going back to the whole family thing, they're stuck up there in the mountains with no way to get back to society.
So what is your book about?
So The Shining, in a nutshell, is pretty much just the story of the Torrance family, which is Jack Torrance, Wendy Torrance, and their 5-year-old son, Danny. Jack, he's an aspiring writer, an ex-alcoholic. He's very insecure and has lots of anger problems. Used to be an English teacher before he went nuts on a kid and beat him up for slashing his tires. And ever since then it was kind of just downhill till he got this job to watch over the Overlook Hotel during the winter as sort of a caretaker, and that's when the whole family moves in. And, Danny, the 5-year-old boy, him and Jack are kind of the main focuses of the book. He has these psychic abilities to where he can read other people's thoughts and know just what they're thinking about and their emotions and everything.
I don't suppose they told you anything in Denver about the tragedy we had up here during the winter of 1970? I hired a man named Charles Grady as the winter caretaker. From what I've been told, I mean, he seemed like a completely normal individual. But at some point during the winter, he must have suffered some kind of a complete mental breakdown. He ran amok and killed his family with an axe.
Thank you very much for coming to us today, so we can, explain our thoughts, and what we thought about the theme and how it tied in, towards our lives. And that's the one thing I love about your novels.
Yeah, I think that's what I usually try to go for when I write books, is to kind of keep them relevant throughout the ages.
And such as relevant, and keeping it relevant to even today as I live. The loss and grief, as I said about Pet Sematary. I want, how it ties into mental instability and, what to do and like how it will happen in the face of danger. You know, it's really interesting. And like I said, just thank you so much for coming in today. You know, it was a major help. And you know, everyone traveling in, either if it was maybe 100 miles away or just around the corner, you know, getting to see you is just a big inspiration. You know, if I could, I would cry right now because you're just probably one of the biggest inspirations. So thank you so much for coming in today.
Oh yeah, it's no problem.
Thank you, Mr. Key.